This mission, I would say, of vocal transformation, because it is definitely a mission, is the awakening of the vocal capacity of the human race. So it's for all beings, for us to remember this vibrational tool that we have as part of our physical anatomy, part of our deepest instinctual intelligence that we have that helps to manifest and create our world.
Maryn Azoff is a vocal transformation expert who believes our voice is far more than just a tool for communication. It's a gateway to healing, vitality, and creating the reality we desire. In this fascinating conversation, we explore how reconnecting with our authentic voice can fundamentally change our relationships with ourselves and the world.
Everybody's voice is creating their reality right now. So this is what actually started the vocal transformation work. In the Rig Veda, which is the most ancient yogic text that we have here, they speak about the human voice as unmanifest form. This voice is creating resonance. You can hear it. It's like that thick tonality, right? That is a physical waveform pattern that is moving from me out into reality. And according to these ancient teachings, that collapses into physical material plane.
Maryn describes when we rediscover how to use our voice, we start to remember the powerful and intelligent beings we've always been.
So if we really want to get into our integrity and into what our true alignment is, we need to remember what we are, not who we are. And that's the invitation. What we are. We are a body that is the earth. Inside of this body is every bit of intelligence of this planet. And it has been functioning like this since she has put humans on this planet.
On this journey of self-discovery and healing that occurs through reclaiming our voice, we heal many of the ways we've limited ourselves to step into our greater potential.
So the invitation to humanity, like it's the golden ticket is what I tell everybody. We were given the golden ticket. We are co-creators of whatever we are experiencing here. And humans are given that ability. We can create things here that are not from here because we're not from here. And we can create anything within the elemental realm that's possible with her intelligence. So as long as Gaia can make it happen, or the earth can subsidize that, can like make that a physical thing, we can make it happen. And that is everyone's birthright.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Maryn, it's great to see you.
It's wonderful to be here.
It's great to also be talking about the voice on a podcast. That feels kind of like pretty fitting.
Definitely.
So let's kick this off by just sharing with the audience, how would you define, or I guess, define is really the word, vocal transformation and what you do?
This mission, I would say, of vocal transformation, because it is definitely a mission, is the awakening of the vocal capacity of the human race. So it's for all beings, for us to remember this vibrational tool that we have as part of our physical anatomy, part of our deepest instinctual intelligence that we have that helps to manifest and create our world. But this voice of ours was also given to us to increase our health, our vitality, to bring us into alignment, to literally wake up the intelligence of what we are, and then to share ourselves authentically with the world. So I would say that vocal transformation is on a mission of taking what people consider their voice to be now. And I know that we're in a world where people are riddled with self-doubt and insecurity and editors and manipulators in the faculty of our voices, and to get them to their full authentic expression. And that also means the way they physically create sound. So when we look at sound healing and frequencies, the resonance of the human voice, that is the tool that we have to literally change the way we do things on this planet. So it's quite a large mission, but humans can heal themselves and heal the world. And we could literally reduce like so many of the issues we have right now if we would actually get the full capacity of our voice.
And this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, voice seems to be kind of a lost art that has been pervasive across ancient cultures and societies for forever.
Since the first people walked on this earth, and you could literally go any culture, you can go to any corner of the earth and look at the original societies, and they will have some form of vocal practice, chanting, singing, drumming. There's a way that we connected back then with spirit that now is kind of relegated to esoteric or religious practices, but it was every human was doing this then. And it wasn't about any religion or God that we might believe in. And it was about how we actually wake up the nervous system of our body. So,
Mm.
all the way back at the beginning of time, it was a matter of survival. And it still is today a matter of our survival, because the voice itself, if you look at the science around it and the oxytocin and the endorphins that are released when we use our voice in this connected way, the way they were doing it all the way back then, and many cultures still are today, mind you. But us in the West, we kind of lost this, and our voices became an ego tool
Mm.
instead of the body's medicine, which is what it actually is.
And how did you start to realize this more expansive power and potential of voice in your own experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was born with the ability to sing, and very early on, they found my voice and they began training me, classically to become a performer. Because whenever you find a talent in a child, you say, that's what you're going to do when you grow up, right? So I'm not complaining about it. It was an incredible, incredible gift to my life that I learned how to support and produce sound. And it actually, we won't go into it in this talk potentially, but it was actually a major amount of self-regulation that was necessary in my life at that time. I ultimately left the music industry. They trained me to be a singer, and I ultimately, pretty young, realized that competitive and like the way that the ego runs that industry, I did not want to be a part of. And I decided I'm not a singer. So I went off on a hero's journey and I find myself in Australia, trying to build myself totally new all over again. And I went to the furthest place you could go where nobody knew who I was to try to find out what I am without this voice that had been trained for such a long time. Because I was known as the voice, and for
Mhm.
everyone, it was like, Maryn, she's the singer. And I had to kind of find out, who am I really? Because that was my identity for so long. So, to make a very long story short, I ended up on an ashram in Australia, which was not something. I wasn't practicing yoga at the time. It was nothing I was interested in. And it was a fluke, not so fluke meeting that someone invited me to do this chanting work, and then ultimately brought me to the ashram where that chanting work was taught to her. And on that ashram, we learned how to chant into these Vedic fires, which, white girl from New York, like growing up in the suburbs, this is like totally foreign stuff to me. But my heart's always been open to new things. So I sat there and I chanted to this fire of cow dung and ghee and rice and this copper pyramid. And we were living on an ashram that was in the middle of the Cessnock Valley of Australia, that was in 35 years of drought at that time. And all of the surrounding farms, lands were dry and cracked and arid. But we had bountiful food
Mm.
with the same water restrictions that everybody else had, with the same limitations, with our daily chanting practices and our movement of sound and voice. And this fire ritual that I was taught is called Agnihotra. And it's literally a farmer's fire, a Vedic fire ritual that creates a biosphere that gets rid of negative ions and helps with the ash that you put the mantra into. You put on the soil and it creates massive fertilization for the earth. So this was proven to me in like physical reality, not to mention that my eyesight improved, my body odor eliminated itself, my gastrointestinal system lined up and got on track. Like my physical health improved so drastically just from chanting every day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That sounds amazing. And I definitely want to go deeper into this. And it brings up this thing I found myself thinking about, this balance of kind of healing and creation, and wondering as it pertains to the power of voice to create reality and the power of voice to heal our emotional, mental, physical being, does one come before the other? Is there a requisite amount of healing that has to occur before the power of the voice reveals itself? I'm just curious how those two dynamics interplay.
It's a great question. Um, no, our voice is creating our reality right now. Everybody's voice is creating their reality right now. So this is what actually started the vocal transformation work in the Rig Veda, which is the most ancient yogic text that we have here. They speak about the human voice as unmanifest form. So if we think of our voice, or just look at our voice, if I were to go, ah, this voice is creating resonance. You can hear it. It's like that thick tonality, right?
Mm.
That is a physical waveform pattern that is moving from me out into reality. And according to these ancient teachings, that collapses into physical material plane. I know it sounds very far-fetched, but we could actually take that to another level, which is a human has 7 layers of an electromagnetic frequency that we would call a chakra, right? And we look at that word chakra, and whenever I talk about chakras, people are always like, oh God, she's going into like woo-woo
Here we
territory,
go.
right? But if you look at the chakras anatomically, there is a group of nerve ganglion, a cluster of nerve endings that are sitting at each of those quote unquote chakra points. And when that is stimulated, it creates a massive electromagnetic field, a bioelectric field that's coming off of us. So humans are in the grid of all of the electromagnetic. We're in a massive universal brain, all of us, right? If you look at each of us, we are literally emitting a frequency off of each of these layers. And that is our biofield. And that is how we interact with the world. So, what enters our world and what is repelled from our world comes from the energy that we are actually sending out from inside. There is nothing out there that is not in a relationship with how you are presenting. So when you look at the voice, most of us have relegated our voice to our throat and our head. We have forgotten what we knew all the way back when we were babies, which was how to use the voice, because it was the first thing we used when we came into the world. We took a breath in and we cried. And when we cried, we used every muscle of the body. I mean, like a baby crying is an amazing thing. Their entire vessel expands. And that is how the human voice is designed to function. But most of us over time we have atrophy. We don't use the correct muscles. We don't use the right amount of breath. We don't actually bring that spirit into the body and express through the whole vessel. So we're sending a lot of our energy through just a couple of chakras or energy, electromagnetic fields. And that's how the world's responding to us.
And I'm curious to kind of, dive into this a little bit, because one of the things that I've observed is the more that I kind of have went into my subconscious and just seen so much over the years, the more I realize that the outer world is very much a reflection of that inner material. And what I'm curious about is like when you say voice, right? And like voice creating reality, voice creating form, is that a literal thing where it's like we have to bring voice to the concepts and information in our totality of our consciousness for it to manifest? Or is it whether we use our physical voice or not, like those things are coming into being just merely by their existence?
Yes. So if thought creates everything, and thought is an electromagnetic frequency. So if we look at the throat chakra and we say this is the area of our voice, because we would say that's where our vocal cords are. So that's where our voice comes through. It's actually our area of choice and follow through. So we decide at the throat level what we're going to put out into the world. And so that's our voice. It could be everything, anything and everything that happens from within that we choose to put out into the world. So, yes, our verbal voice is one piece of our voice, but our voice is every action we take. And also, the thought creates it to begin with.
Mm.
So it does start in your mind. What you think is the insemination of your voice. And then if you talk to any psychiatrists around this, thought creates feeling, creates action, right? So we have a mechanism that the thought triggers an emotional response. Energy begins to move, and then we make a choice of how we're going to react or act with that energy that has just moved. Our verbal voice is a way faster and way more productive delivery system. So I'll use the example of TM, which is maybe the most popular meditation practice that we have in the West, transcendental meditation. And that whole meditative practice is around sitting in silence and reciting a mantra in your mind. That mantra in your mind is affecting the subtle energy bodies, which is going to ultimately affect the physical form. But when we pair our voice with that mantra, which is how it's been practiced for many years, we now go from subtle to gross. We now take that energy and we create a physical waveform pattern moving from inside of our bodies to the outside world. And we are going to speed up the process.
Mm.
So you could pray for $100. Just going to use this as an example. Pray to God for $100. And you know what? It will work. If you keep praying and really believe that $100 is coming, it will come. But if you actually go to someone and say, hey, can I have $100? They might say, yeah, here, what do you need it for? And you might get it like that, right? Now, that is a very simplified example, but it is an example of how important it is to vocalize what we need, to vocalize what we want, and to not be afraid to speak up. Because when we speak up, we move things much quicker. Many of us are afraid to speak up because we move things much quicker, right? And it's something we know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is really interesting. You hear countless anecdotes of people speaking things into existence. One of the examples that comes to mind is there's a person I'm having on the podcast soon named Katino Mobley. He was a 10-year NBA player, and like there's this video of all of his college teammates saying like, this guy is crazy. Like he was just talking about how he was going to go to the NBA when like he had no like right to say that. Like he wasn't the tallest, he wasn't the fastest, all these things, but he just kept saying it. And he went to the NBA and he had this amazing 10-year career. And his teammates talked about that he was like that with everything, where he spoke things into existence before they occurred. And it seems like some of us have a capacity to do that and do it in a way that is actually integrous and aligns, like where we're actually saying things that we fully believe. And then a lot of people, you know, just don't believe that exists. That's a thing. Or they kind of do, and they kind of just say things that aren't actually true. They're aligned with their true belief system. And so like, how do we, I guess like what I'm hearing you say is like, this is a thing. It is definitely a thing. And like, how do we start to make progress to actually step into that kind of like Katino Mobley power of like fully believing and fully saying?
Yeah, I think we have to go all the way back to the root. So much of the work of vocal transformation is we go through the entire chakra system from the root up. We have to rebirth because what we have been influenced to believing, like I always say, when we're young and impressionable, we get impressed upon quite a lot. And those markings create personality traits, belief systems, and thought processes that don't belong to us at all. So if we really want to get into our integrity and into what our true alignment is, we need to remember what we are, not who we are. And that's the invitation, what we are. We are a body that is the earth. Inside of this body is every bit of intelligence of this planet. And it has been functioning like this since she has put humans on this planet. And that is a long time before any one of us individually are here, right? So that information is there for all of us all the time. There's no one, no matter what state you're born in, what your socioeconomic, what your race, your culture, or your wherever you happen to be born into in history, what part of the world, you still have that body that has all of that intelligence in it. And then we have our soul, our cosmic self that comes in and incarnates into that body, which when we're born awakens that intelligence with our first breath and our first scream. Right. And now here we are, we're in this energy and we are creating the world. So the invitation to humanity, like it's the golden ticket, is what I tell everybody. We were given the golden ticket. We are co-creators of whatever we are experiencing here. And humans are given that ability. We can create things here that are not from here because we're not from here. And we can create anything within the elemental realm that's possible with her intelligence. So as long as Gaia can make it happen, or the earth can subsidize that, can like make that a physical thing, we can make it happen. And that is everyone's birthright. But then what happens along the way? We're taught by the outside world that that's not true. You're not as smart as the other kids or athletic or agile as the other kids. You don't come from a family that has that kind of ability. This is what your lot in life is, which is the biggest lie that any of us have ever been told, because we are the evolutionary track of our genetics. So our epigenetics are telling that initial story 3 generations back of all the trauma or all the storyline that's been like given to us in the genes we wear, right? But then we have the ability to evolve that, which is why we have to pull more spirit in. So breath is everything. And then from how we breathe is how our voice will work. And then when you say, like, how do we get past that? Each of these chakras is representative of a certain time of our life and how we were informed. And with your voice, you can go into each of those areas of your embodiment and you can erase what isn't serving you and you can bring in anything you need. That's the power of our voice. It's like the human voice is the tuning fork for every human being.
I love that. I hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. If you like what you hear, let me know by clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and responding with a comment around something that you found interesting in the conversation so far. In addition to these videos, I do a lot of writing on the exploration of consciousness and my own personal revelations in my newsletter called Consciousness: The Doorway to Human Evolution. To receive these updates and more, all you need to do is simply head to the link in the description below and you'll be added to the community of 20,000 plus consciousness explorers receiving weekly ideas and inspiration in their inbox. I look forward to hearing from you there. Now let's get back to the show. And one of the other questions that is coming up for me is I know that there's a lot of people that are doing this healing work, right? They're doing somatic experiencing, they're doing breath work, they're doing internal family systems. There's like a bajillion different approaches. And a lot of people probably haven't ever experienced voice. They haven't approached this using some type of vocal transformation or vocal faculty. And so like, why voice versus, going and doing a 20-minute breath work or going and doing, one of these other things?
I love breath work and I'm 100% like yes to breath work. Because what is breath work? It's spirit. You're inspiring, re-spiriting your body. You're basically hyperventilating in the best way possible. But what you're doing is bringing your breath in, right? So respiration, re-spiriting. That is what we do every time we breathe. And inspiration, literally in the medical books, inhalation, what they actually call inspiration, which means inspiriting. So every time we breathe in, we're breathing our spirit into our body. And that is a mandatory thing to do to keep the body alive, right? But most humans are breathing upper lungs, diaphragm stuck, and that means we're kind of just surviving. And when we breathe that way, we are also sending a signal to our body because that's not the way we're designed to breathe. We're designed to breathe diaphragm down. We're sending a signal to our body that we're in stress. When only the upper lungs receive air, we release cortisol and adrenaline and chemicals in the body that we do not need because we are not in a stressful situation. That breath is meant for when like the building is burning or when the murderer is chasing you and you're like, right? That's what that's for. But everyday breath is diaphragm down. So when we talk about what breath work does, yes, like get that breath in the body, you feel how your body has a hard time with that, but ultimately you're going to blast the system with spirit. And in that moment, you can clear so much. So I am all about breath work, but breath and sound is the breakthrough I think this world needs. Because if you go to like longer breathwork sessions, in the middle, typically when I guide breathwork, so in the middle, you're going to say, scream as loud as you can, or laugh with me, or do something to mobilize the feeling that you're feeling, right? Like you'll be in the middle of like pain and you're tensing up and everything. And then the facilitator will go, okay, just let out as much sound as you can, right? And in that moment, you can free so much because the body is ready to release it. You have just like gotten the body to that supercharged, agitated state. And now the body needs to release it, right? But instead of that practice, what if every day you took that deep breath and you trained your breath into your body without these like hyper situations where you're like bringing yourself into these states, but it became your every single day modus operandi, that your diaphragm moves down, that your body opens, because when your diaphragm moves down, all of your voice muscles are activated down below, and that you learn to support your spirit, your soul, in its proper expression in the world. If that was happening every day, you wouldn't need these therapies anymore, because you would be walking around the world in your confident, primordial confidence. Confidence comes with the body. There is nothing in the outside world that should make you feel less than, unworthy, stupid, like you don't belong here. And when you breathe your own spirit into your body and support your voice every day from where it's meant to be supported from, you won't need anybody to tell you those things, because you know it from the deepest place within, that you are the divine child of creation with a magical purpose and with a lot of gifts and abilities. And you want to share that person with the world as a contribution to life itself. That is how you will feel every day. And when you have that kind of vibration of your voice moving through, when you speak from those places. So, yes, we do a lot of chanting work. And yes, we help people sing that want to sing, because all that's important. But this comes down to the way you speak every day. This isn't, you don't even have to become the best singer in the world. This is not what we're on about. This is about, do I support my soul in my body to express what I truly feel and truly want to see happen in my life every day? And the more you begin to really build its muscles, its resonators, it's not just like an idea. I want to be the best NBA player in the world. It's not that, right? It's not just like a thought, a thought, a thought, a thought, a thought. It's a breath, it's support, it's spirit, and it's energy and resonance. And you speak, I am going to be the best NBA player in the world. And when that starts to move, that truth, it emanates from your being. So what that does is it increases your vitality and your stamina, because of course, if you're an NBA player, you're going to need all of those things. That energy of evoking that power and that thought in the body is going to get you to practice every day with no excuses. When you see someone, a coach or someone who's coming in to watch you play because you're such a good player, you're going to say, that's right, I'm your number one star. You know I am. And they're going to go, you probably are, because you believe in yourself. And boom, 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 boom. But there's another piece of it that very recently I've been really seeing in my students that I think is a very important and profound thing from this work. You hear a lot about empaths and like this outside world that is so hard for us right now. But you could feel just from the way I'm speaking, if you breathe into that body and you're creating a resonant sound and you're standing in your confidence and your voice is moving from your central channel out into the world every day, you're also creating this beautiful energetic force field where what the world receives from you is this empowered, alive, beautiful thing that, of course, they're going to react to. But you also won't be absorbing everyone's negative energy all the time. You won't be absorbing the world that like wants to collapse in on all of us. Instead, you will hold your place here, which means that your nervous system is intact. So humans are meant to live in parasympathetic, but we're living in sympathetic because look at all the impulses that are coming towards us every day. And with your own voice, you can maintain parasympathetic nervous system.
That really maps to my own experience, where it's a couple years into the transformation journey, I had become incredibly sensitive and I could feel so much and it was so intense. I felt like I was also just getting a lot of information that wasn't mine. And, I had to like stop like using substances like drinking and stuff because like that would intensify all of it. But what I noticed is if I kept going and then at some point that kind of all just stopped. Like there kind of was just uh no longer a yeah, I just wasn't subject to that anymore, and it wasn't really an intentional thing, but it almost was kind of like though, like I was fortified from all of that, and
Right.
it sounds like that's a pattern that is pretty natural on
Yes.
when you do this work.
So when you start to do this kind of work, your body is going, you're going to hit these edges where the old self and the old you is going to want to like collapse back into what how you normally act or what normally is. And the world is amazing at like presenting that to you as well, that like these moments that you're going to have to persevere through and keep moving through and keep telling the world that you are informing, okay, I would act this way, but now I act this way instead. And every one of those barriers that you push through just it's an up leveling. It's like a new set. So as you're it's a training. It really is a training. It's if you're going to a boot camp, it's if you're training to be an athlete or you're training to be a singer or you're training to be an astronaut or whatever it is, right? You're going to have to go through these moments where your body has to strengthen and up level to the next ability to hold a different amount of energy, to hold
Mm.
a different plane of existence. And there's tests and trials the whole way. But think about a child. So if you go back to looking at kids, tons of science around this too, but you have lots of children who are in situations where they might be very uncomfortable. They're in abusive households, there's things going on, they're in stress, there's whatever, and they'll be like coloring by themselves and they're humming. You ever heard a child just like,
Hmm.
or seen a
Yeah.
child just like, they're humming to themselves. This is a built-in mechanism to get us back to parasympathetic. So when a child feels overwhelmed, they will begin to hum, and they're regulating their own nervous system. Nobody taught them to do that. This is something that just comes with the body. And when those vocal cords are vibrating, they're creating a sound that actually thickens the myelin sheath on the outside of the vagus nerve. Our voice is our tool to create a resilient body. It's wild. And when a mother is nurturing a child who can't, a crying baby, a baby who's colicky or like can't be stopped, she'll put that baby to her heart and she'll start humming.
Yeah.
That feeling will regulate the child's nervous system and will bring the baby back into stasis. We can do that for ourselves anytime. But instead, we go to a doctor or we go someone else outside of ourselves that we think knows better how to manage the body we're in. But we know how to do it. We just forgot. And in some cases, we live in environments where we did cry and nobody came to feed us, or we did have a temper tantrum and nobody held it down. They punished us instead. So we live in a world where we don't think it's actually safe to release what we need to release. And that has over all these years, it's like degraded humanity. I see it as a major degradation of humanity.
I do as well. and and hopefully we're taking one step backward to take two forward, and I think we are. And one of the things that I have noticed is as people kind of become aware of the power of voice and the importance of speaking their truth, there tends to be this reactionary response where people just start being belligerent in what they say, right? It's just like, I'm not going to suppress myself anymore. Go F yourself. This is what I believe in. And they actually think that that is improving their condition and supportive for them. And I'm just curious, kind of like one thing that's clear to me from this conversation, it's not about just what you say. It is about like the literal quality and resonance of what is coming out of your being. But I would also be interested to hear how you think about that scenario
Mhm.
where people are no longer suppressing, but they're kind of just reacting from their patterns and projecting them on everyone.
Yeah. Basically, what they're saying is, I'm not going to hold back my ego anymore. That's what
Mm.
they're saying, right? They're not saying, I'm not going to hold myself back anymore. They're saying, I'm not going to hold back the thoughts that I've been having in coping for all this, for all these years. And so, yeah, this is a big, big, big thing for us. Everything you think is not what you really feel, right? And so much of our thought process is given to us, and we just go along with it to fit in, and then we claim it as our own. So really what vocal transformation is inviting people to is remember what you are and find out who you are in that process, instead of all of the ways that the world has made me who I am, because you make the world doesn't make you. And so when we stand in that, the ego wants to win. The ego wants to be right. The ego needs to be the smartest, the best, the only one who knows. That's what the ego needs, right? Or it needs to make sure that everyone's happy because then I'm a good person, to make sure I'm doing what you expect me to do so that I'm okay. It goes in both directions. It's not just dominant, it could be highly submissive as well, which doesn't serve us either, right? But either way, the ego has to make things right and know the best. So, with that, whenever you're in a conversation, the first thing that wants to come out of your mouth, don't say it. Take a breath before you say it. Breathe that diaphragm down and see if that's still what you want to say. That's the hardest moment right there, because the ego knows exactly what to say right away. It's like, oh, you're going to say that to me. Well, I'm going to say this to you. I have the strategy and the coping mechanisms down pat. I know exactly who I am and how I'm going to be right now. But that's not what we want. Because at the heart level, humans don't want to be right. At the heart level, humans want love, connection. They want to be felt. They want to be seen. They want to be able to feel others and see others. This is how we come together, and this is how we create the world together. Egos can think I alone can do this, which is not the truth. It's the stupidest. It's not even possible for anyone alone to do anything. I don't even have a shirt right now unless someone exists. Like, we cannot do anything here alone, and we're not. And at a heart level, we know that. So the human race, the call right now is to come back to the heart. In the heart space, we're feeling. In the heart space, we're in touch with our emotions. In the heart space, we're in our bodies, and only inside of that space can we actually feel what we really need in this moment and what we really want to create the next moment to look like. The head doesn't have that. The head has everything that's happened in the past, all the strategy that comes with that to make the future look the way we want it to look. The heart is the only part of us that actually could be here right now. And when we're here right now, now we have power to make a choice. There's our throat chakra. If I speak this out now, what will be the outcome? The heart knows what it wants, but the head doesn't think about what the outcome is. The head just wants to get it out, and then we'll deal with the outcome when it comes, right? So the heart is the most powerful part of a human because it is the brain that sits between the head and the gut. So these two things, right, are feeding into a massive brain where all of our chi energy lives. And that is where we need to function from, because when we speak up instead of talking down, instead of from what we think we know, we speak from our personal experience, how it makes us feel, and how we want to contribute into the world, instead of how I want to dominate the world, which is all the head really wants to do. It just wants to win. But when we actually speak up, we now are like eye to eye, we're heart to heart with whoever we're speaking to. Now we're safe, now we're seen, now we're heard. And from this place, we can begin to put it all together the way we want to see life happen.
Resonates immensely. It's clear to me you've done a lot of work on opening your heart and stabilizing that opening. How have you done that?
Um, I don't know. I love people. I love this earth. I love what we're doing here. I would say that when we look back, I've always had that love in my being and I've always really believed in us. My parents gave me the middle name Hope. My name is Maryn Hope Azoff. And it was a very, very appropriate name I was given because I really believe in what the ability of the human race is. And you hear so many people say now that we're the cancers, we're terrible. We're not. We're also the messiahs, and we're also the ones who are going to fix this thing. And we are going to fix this thing. And I just know it. Right. So that hope is very real. But when I was younger, I definitely went off path like we do. Right. So I have a whole life of mistakes and errors and immorals and things. Like I have a whole world of that before me. And then when I decided to go to Australia and start to change that life and start to tap into the earth, it really became a very earth centric life that I lived, really like listening to my body and to the planet and, organically living and coming out of synthetics into organics was, I think, the first big change for me of like feeling life the way that earth wants us to live it here was the first big turnaround. And then the intelligence was just there. So once you actually tap into it, again, the chanting was a major moment for me. Like once my voice, I was a professional singer. So I had my voice, but that I had it in this performative way. And then once I was introduced to, oh no, this voice is ours for healing. This voice is ours for feeling. This voice is ours for creating. Once I was introduced to that and my voice didn't become this thing that I have that's going to get me, advance me in life in some industry, but instead it became this tool, this mechanism to heal my life. The rest of the information was just already there. This isn't something that I needed to really learn. And I don't think you need to learn it either. And I don't think anybody needs to learn anything, except what I would say is just how to support your sound correctly, which you already knew how to do when you were a child. But someone shut you up. You let out a sound and someone said no, or someone said, you can't sing, or your brother or sister made fun of you and you felt shame around it. And in that moment, something contracted and never expanded again. And the more that that happens to us, the more that contraction holds. And then we get these little voices in the world and these great ideas that might be in here, but we don't think that we have the power to actually put anything out. That's muscular. That's literally from the feeling of, instead of, really, I have a great voice. Thanks. I'll keep singing. Right? We have a feeling instead of, oh, I'm not good enough. And it literally contracts the whole energy field. And if we don't have the right teacher, the right friend, the right parent to nurture us out of that and get us back into full expression, we are now in limited expression. So once we actually wake that up, there's nobody, I don't think, that has to learn anything. You already know it. It's in every cell of your being. You were it. You are the intelligence of the earth. You don't need to learn the earth. You are the intelligence of the soul that came in from wherever we came from. You didn't need to learn that. What we need to do is remember it and give it its time again to do what it does. And once we actually get back to that place, every human being is brilliant, genius, amazing. Every one of us has that. It's just, there's nothing to learn. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but it's a path that I chose to stay on. As these awakenings started happening, I was like, oh, this is starting to feel good. I'm starting to get better friends and better lovers, and I have more orgasms. I mean, that's a big one. And I have more joy and more creativity and more money and more all of those things. Like it just starts to bring in life force. And when you actually are there in that place, you decide to follow that and stay there and keep moving and stick it out. And you know it already. There's nothing to really learn. It's only to rediscover, be, I guess, how I would put it.
Yeah, there's something that strikes me is I agree. I agree that there is an implicit truth of who you've always been. And there is a unlayering process to come back to that realization. And I think one of the things that I guess is it's more natural, I guess you could call learning or maybe something else. I heard you talk about this experience of there's the kind of separation from the ego so that it's able to be witnessed. And then there's this openness of the kind of true self that starts to become more prominent. And then there's the surrender to that. And there's the learning, to me, there's a learning of trust in that. There's a learning of that benevolence and the benevolence of that intelligence,
Exactly.
so that you realize that actually aligning to it is the most beneficial thing for yourself and for everyone, which is all the same thing. And yeah, it's not a learning, but it's like there's a definite intentionality around trusting that. And there, I would also say there's an intentionality around becoming aware of the obstructions that make that easier in our patterns.
It's all the way back again to the root chakra. As you're talking, I'm just in awe of like how it's from the moment we enter here. And I really believe it's part of the test, if there is a test here, that we come through this amnesia, that we don't realize this. And at the root chakra level, we have to ask ourselves, does life want me here? And is life good? And in all of my spiritual practices and teachings and the lineages that I've been blessed to learn from, the basic goodness of life is the key that keeps us going. That life at the deepest level of truth is good. And we are really set into a world where they don't want us to believe that. They want us to believe the earth is scary, whoever they is. I'm not, the earth is a scary place. The earth is dangerous. That even like a little spider is out to kill us. This is so ridiculous. I got to kill it first. But this idea of like being afraid of this planet where there really is nothing to fear. We are the most fearful creatures on this planet right now because we live in so much fear. We are the meanest and the cruelest to the world around us. It's just such a wild game we're playing. But the knowing that life wants you to thrive, which sits all the way at the root chakra, is our biggest issue. And trust and faith in life itself is all we need. To believe in God, call it whatever you want, but it's really to know that whatever amount of time, as we define time, that we are going to be here, we have an opportunity to experience this three-dimensional realm. Maybe it's more than that, but we'll leave it there for the moment. And we get this incredible opportunity to dance within the elemental form and feel all the feels that come with it. And let our imagination and our inspiration and our creativity go wild within us and create things that we get to experience in physical reality after we dream it awake. Like, this is literally the opportunity of humanity. And we believe that this is a hard, difficult task, and that mostly there's just going to be obstacles in our way and that we're not going to be able to see it to its fruition. Why do we believe that? And yes, the world as we're growing up has handed that down to us. We believe it because in our developing years, our parents told us, which they were told by their grandparents, their parents and their parents. The world has given us some really heavy things to deal with: depressions and endings and beginnings and wars and all sorts of things go on, right? And this world is so crazy. But we have this feeling like it's scary. It's a bad place to be. I don't know how you feel, Scott, but Earth is magnificent. She is like gorgeous and incredible, and all of her creatures are so beautiful and creative, and people are so good and loving. I have experienced in my life because I've been that myself, and so I get that back. And there's opportunity after opportunity after opportunity when you're living in that potentiality. But when you're living in the idea that there's not, well, now you have to live in that world of the thought you're thinking is everything's out to get me instead of everything's out to give me.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean, whatever your relation to that is going to be what it's going to be. And I think the thing that really shifted it all for me, that orientation, was when I realized that reality was unfolding to awaken me to everything we're talking about. Like, that was the orchestrating intelligence behind life's events. And that recognition was like, oh my God, this is out of love. This thing that was like seeming an inconvenience or whatever, this annoyance that life is hard and fuck, why can't this go easier? It was there to show me what stood in the way of unconditional living. And like, that is a benevolent force. And so, like, the deeper you go on that and the deeper you see that, then it's like, yeah, like, dude, like, life is happening for me. And like, I am life because I am the one that is helping myself and others in that evolutionary process. And so yeah, it's epic, but like, it's a, I would just say, like, it's not an overnight switch, to kind of deprogram all these like shitty concepts that you inherit and our culture espouses. Like, it's,
But I will say, for the brave who are wanting to come into this kind of work, right before this interview, I was with a student who was crying. I had to record what she was saying because just where she is only on the root chakra, which is the beginning of all this work, 40 days in to this work. She comes from an entirely destroyed beginning. Like, her trauma was so deep and she couldn't trust life at all. She's single. She doesn't know how to make her money or do anything, like, just to all the way down to, like, her nervous system is so contracted because she doesn't feel safe in her body at all. And she finds me by some amazing design because she doesn't know why she's coming to work on her voice. She doesn't even know, she doesn't even want her voice. Like, she doesn't want to be a singer or anything, but something about this work called her. 40 days in, she finally breaks into the earth herself. And she asked me this really incredible question. She said, Maryn, I sat there and I asked for support. I was feeling needing support and I started chanting. And I asked the earth for support. And I felt an influx in my body of the deepest love I have ever felt before. It was so profound. And it was like, all I could equate it to was like a breastfeeding mother that feeds the baby and until the baby's full. So there's no stopping until the baby says the baby is full. And then at one point, her mind, thinking too much, stopped the influx. And then when it all stopped, she went, no, no, I still need more. And vroom, it came right on back.
well,
And she was like, I can ask for what I need and I get it. And something in her whole system, not in her mind, in her whole system, got it. The earth is providing everything I need. I am in the way of that. Now, I don't want to there's no blame on anybody who's playing that role right now, because that is what was imprinted into our minds, that we need it from the outside and that we don't get it. A lot of us in this world don't get it right now. But when you do this work, and all she's doing is sitting and chanting every day, just as if someone was sitting and meditating, someone is doing a yoga posturing, like doing something, going to the gym, whatever your discipline is every day, you can literally sit with this voice work and just do that voice work and you will get to a full shift. So yes, there's a big world out there of people who are like, I'm so far from that. And if you would just give it a shot and come in and do it, you would see your body wants to give you everything. The earth wants to give you everything. The mother, wants to give you earth. She wants to give you life. She wants to give you success. She wants to give you physical health, strong bones, a good immune system. The body regenerates just like the planet does. So whatever story you're telling yourself, I don't know if you know this, but every 7 years you're in a new body.
I've heard that.
And every 7 years you cycle through your chakra system. So every 7 years, all of these lessons and all these things that we go through with vocal transformation, you've gone through them again, and you are a new version of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it. You don't have to chant for 7 years to get there. The whole process takes 9 months. It takes
Mm.
the exact amount of time it takes to birth
To
yourself
have a
originally.
baby. Yeah.
It takes to rebirth yourself whenever you're ready with your own voice.
Well, me and my wife are going to have our second baby, going to start trying for our second baby soon. So maybe I should have a little rebirth alongside with the
It's
boys.
the best idea.
um, this is so epic. I mean, I love this. And I'm so appreciative that you are sharing that this is not forever, lifelong, go become a renunciate, leave your job, like do all the things like that. It's actually so available if you seek it out and maybe treat it as an experiment. A question that I have for you, because I've actually done some voice stuff when I was really ill, and it taught me a lot of different things that you talk about, how like there's literal physical manifestations um, that are in the way. But like, I'm curious at like a practical level for the work that you do, as someone starts chanting, how does that healing process come up? Is it like emotions start to rise to the surface and then you allow those to be there and feel them? Is it something else? Like, what is it practically like when you do the 30 or 40 minutes of chanting a day that creates this healing effect?
So as we start at the root, we start with the breath first. So first you're going to get your breath where it belongs in your body so that your body's going to come back to a place of, okay, like I am fully in my action now, like I'm ready for alignment. When you start chanting, you're going to notice your nervous system is grounding, but you're also going to notice potentially, of course it varies, but you're also going to notice the thoughts that want to steal you from letting your body rest and repair. And so you're going to start to see the separation between this is what I'm here to do and this is what my mind wants to do.
Mm,
And this is what I'm here to do and this is what my mind wants to do. And you're going to start to train that to quiet. You're going to start to train your mind. So chanting work, the first thing I would like to say is it literally trains you for the right meditation practice. So people who sit down and just meditate, most of the time they're just running around and they're sitting there and you get like some moments. It takes a long time to get there. Chanting is the first step to getting to perfect meditation. So you're creating a stability and an ability to hold that space between the thoughts while you're chanting. So that's number one. But what you're going to notice is, yes, emotions will start to rise. I just had someone the other day who's on his root chakra with me. He's a one percenter. He's out there in the world making a ton of money and a big business for himself. And he decided that he needed to align in a good way because there's a lot of energy when you're at that level. And he's like, "Why am I hysterical crying, Maryn?" And I said to him, "You have to cry that out." So when you're in that, the first thing that'll come up is, yes, there might be some emotions, memories, things that are going to rise and they need to be expressed. There are things that you're holding that are not out, right? So it's literally the voice is welcoming and opening and pushing these things out of your cells. So what's stored inside of your cellular memory as trauma, as memories that are emotions that you never processed are going to start to come up and out. So what do? You sit there and you cry a little bit. Do not hold it in. Do not hold it in. Whether you're chanting or not, everyone, do not hold it in. How many humans are like, just trying to satisfy these tears that want to come up and come out? And if you just let them out in 1 minute, you'd be past it. But when you hold it in, 40 years later, you're still sitting with it.
yeah.
Right? So all you need to do is let it out. And so that's the first thing. But the other thing is that you're going to start to see the world around you bringing you every opportunity to change and fix and deal with whatever is in there. This is the wild part of why I know for a fact we are creating our reality. And so do thousands of my students, because every single one of them says, I cannot believe it. I'm on the second chakra right now and we're working on this thing. And this guy comes over and he says this, or this girl comes over and she says this, or I'm in the root chakra and I'm like looking at my scarcity And I'm breaking through that. And then all of a sudden, the best job of my life, someone just called me and offered me the best job of my life. So literally, when you break through and you actually move the old energy, the outside world is going to show you that you've done that.
Reflects it.
It's incredible. So it's step by step. You go into each of these areas of your life, right? 0 to 1 is your root chakra. So it's your conception to your birth. It's what was happening to you in utero and how that affects your feelings of safety on the earth. It's what was happening within the first year of your life and how that determines whether or not you feel like you belong on this planet and you have access to all that energy from the mother that we were talking about. Second chakra is your creativity, your sexuality, your sensuality, your emotions, your ability to be in your flow and take that energy from the earth that she gives you so beautifully and move it into creative reality, like to actually create with it. The vast majority of humans are completely blocked at second chakra. So the earth is below us going like, come on, I want to give you all of my vitality. I want to give you all this wellspring. And you're like, no, I'm not going to let it through. I'm going to have a rigid, tight second chakra, a really weird relationship with other people and with life itself. And I'm going to keep myself really small. So we have to get that open. And that's a whole thing to look at. Because from there, we move to third, which is my own gut instinct. Do I trust myself? And do I have confidence in who I am to put myself out into the world in that way? That's your third chakra. Then, if that is debilitated, which so many of us have an issue in that area of our life, we end up cutting away from our heart. When the third chakra is debilitated, we go right to head. 3 and 6 are talking to each other. So when 3 is debilitated, we now have an ego construct that's built out of insecurity, and this is what rules everything. But if we have a confident solar plexus, we now have the access point to truly get to our heart. Once those 4, let me tell you what the heart's all about. Love, obviously. But we talk about love as this concept because so many of us are so removed from that brain because our solar plexus has such issues that we think of love conceptually. But love is actually a frequency. Love is unconditional. As you know, love and life are almost the same word. Have you noticed? Because life is love and love and life are synonymous. So the force of life is to open you to every potentiality. Unconditionally loving is what will heal every aspect of yourself and your relationship with this planet. But when we have issues at solar plexus and the idea of who we think we are is limited, we limit ourselves and the world around us. So we cannot get into unconditional. And once we get into unconditional, guys, yes, there's more chanting, there's throat and there's third eye and there's crown in the how we manifest ourselves as our highest self. But once the human race has cleared from the root chakra to the heart chakra, which is our embodied chakra system, our whole society will be a different society. The way that we physically create our world together will change because we will know who we are and we will know that our birth is a contribution. I said something earlier, which was people think that the world is what can I get from you? What can I not get? We think the world is out to get us instead of what is the world out to give us, right? I said that a little bit a while ago. What about thinking, what am I here to give the world? There's your confidence because every human life is a contribution to the whole thing. Every human life. So when we are fully in our confidence, which allows us into our heart, we know this. What can I offer of myself to this planet? That is what we need to get into as a human race because we've been trained ego to believe I don't have enough. And if we believe I don't have enough, then we need to get more. And we're not really thinking too much about what we're giving. But once we actually start to give, we get so much more. And we're so fulfilled because our heart is in the game. So once we have our heart in the game and the four there are nice and solidly underneath us, well, now the throat will manifest beautiful life for not only yourself, but for everyone around you. And this head that wants to stay so limited in this ego aligns itself with this unconditional, limitless chi potential that we have. And what we create is magnificent.
Guys, if you aren't sold on doing voice work, you must be living in a hole. Um, but seriously, I mean, I love this, and everything you said resonates immensely with my experience. And even though I haven't done voice work, just some of the developments that occur with this type of consciousness and transformation is it's just the best. It's just the best. It's just the best, and it's just amazing. And it's, you know, why I'm so passionate about spreading it, and also highlighting people like yourself, Maryn, who are out there doing that in your unique way, you know, which will resonate with some and maybe not as much with others. And that's totally cool. And so
100%. If you're ready to get your voice, if you are out there looking to like, oh God, I really want to see this happen, it's foreign. There's no doubt that this is in our Western world. I mean, I have tons of people in India who are all about what I'm talking about because it's part of their culture. But if you're really feeling like, oh, this would be odd and weird, but you're up for it to at least try it, my job as a teacher is not to teach you how to become you. My job as a teacher is to give you the tools for you to discover that for yourself. And so, yeah, this voice work is my unique way that it comes through. Although these teachings are not mine, everything I'm teaching is coming from ancient lineages that I'm blessed to carry forward in a more modern approach, we'll say. But the you that will emerge from this is what the world needs. Whatever businesses, you said something before about asceticism. The last thing we need right now in this world are more ascetics. And these are my teachers who are, some of them are very much ascetics, telling me this too. We need people in the trenches changing the way we do things. We don't need people who are running away and trying to get off this planet. We need people on this planet, people who still want to have families and want to make money and want to have businesses and want to like live in this world, to be coming through the lens of co-creation, of unification, of the way we could be an evolved species on this planet. So we're not talking about doing this work to totally demolish who you are. We're talking about doing this work to bring your level of confidence back so strong that you could be anything you could dream in this world. And we can begin to dream this world in a way that is more healthy, more aligned, more abundant, and more beautiful for all of us.
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm in. And yeah, I couldn't agree more just about moving out of this polarized view of spirituality and consciousness evolution into a more integrated view where, you know, this isn't something that takes away from your modern Western experience. It's the ultimate enhancer. And it can actually be done through investigating the way you relate to life itself. And so I mean, it's actually what my book's about. So I'm like all about this and meeting business people and people who want to do all the things like, yeah, like that, this householder tradition that has largely been lost on the Western civilization. It's time for that to be birthed. And so that people can realize that this is, you know, this is something that is going to enhance all the things that you want to do in life. It's time.
It is time for the human race to rise.
Yes. Well, I think this is an excellent ending point. Maryn, you're just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your passion and your heart with us today. It's just so palpable. And I want to give you an opportunity to tell people if this conversation intrigued them, if it resonated with them, you know, where they can learn more about working with you or experiencing some more of your ideas.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You are so wonderful to talk to. The my website is vocaltransformation.com. My Instagram is vocal_transformation. And on both of those, you'll find retreats and online courses and cohorts that you could come be a part of. So there's lots of opportunities and different ways that you can get into the work. And I don't know when this interview is going to air, but I will mention this one last thing, which is for those of you who are just dipping your toe here and you're like, I don't know if I would want to commit to really going through a whole 9-month process. I am doing a really beautiful cohort in January. So right at the beginning of the year on just the root chakra for a group of people who want to go in and just see what begins to happen when you're looking at these things and really being supported by a group of people. And I'm doing it with Nathan Riley, who's an OBGYN who has the Born Free method through the lens of, like you said, you're trying to have a baby, Scott. This is perfect for you. It's through the lens of parenting, reparenting ourselves, and then opening up that resonance to be able to bring the next generation in a really beautifully sound way. Because we do birthing now in a way that helps children feel unsafe. And so there are ways to birth now which will create a root chakra, which you've heard me talk about a lot on this call, that is truly sound. And once we get there as a human race where the root chakra is back on track, that's when the rest of this intelligence doesn't get lost. So we are trying to literally birth a generation of babies that have a good shot at a great life. And if you are interested, even in rebirthing yourself, you don't have to be a parent to do this, although you'll get some amazing information about what's going on in utero while we're talking about what you might have been going through in utero. You can always find on my Instagram, there's a sign up for that as well. So if you come looking at vocal transformation, you'll find all the ways that you can join us.
Amazing. Well, you have my attention with that. And yeah, maybe I'll see you in January. And for everyone listening, I'll make sure to link all those out in the show notes so that they're easy to find. Thanks again, Maryn. This was truly a wonderful experience, and I look forward to continuing to follow your work.
Thank you so much.